Hello, my name is Bulko, and today we're going to do a quick guide for the wizard in Dark and Darker. Before we get going, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the support, the thumbs up in the comments. If you enjoy this content, definitely sub. We're getting close to 2,000 subs, and I'm really hoping we can hit that goal sooner, hopefully by the end of the month, but we'll see how it goes. So thank you so much for watching. And without any further ado, let's dive into the wizard. So as a class, the wizard is the premier damage dealer of arcane damage dealer, I should say, of Dark and Darker. So they're going to be doing a lot of magic damage with a little bit of support in terms of spells like haste and invisibility to allow their team to flank and pull off some of the craziest plays in the game. So let's talk a little bit about the perks and skills right away. So first up, this is what I would consider a fairly default setup. It's a definitely all-rounder, especially if we slot in something like meditation. This is going to be a very typical build. So Arcane Mastery is often the first perk you're going to want to take. This is going to increase your arcane damage by 5%. And the big perk here is taking the cast time of your arcane spells down by 1 second. This is going to give you really fast magic missiles, and it's going to let you pop that invisibility almost instantly, which is how you're going to make the big plays. It lets you escape, it lets you push, it lets you flank. Invisibility is key for wizard sort of being viable, and Arcane Mastery is what enables that. So this is the one perk I would say is absolutely mandatory, and a few of the other ones are potentially optional. Mana Surge is just 10% magic damage bonus. This is fantastic. It's really great. I like it. Sage, this gives you knowledge increased by 10%. You could also consider dropping quick chant here to give you a little bit more cast speed. But if you look over on the left, my casting speed is 28% with quick chant. And then if I have Sage, it's actually 25.8. So I'm really only getting 2.2% more. And I have pretty well 0 plus knowledge gear. The more plus knowledge gear I have, the more Sage is going to actually increase my spell casting speed. So if I have a little bit more gear, this becomes irrelevant, or not irrelevant, but quick chant is better at no gear, and then Sage becomes better with a bit of gear. So that is something to note. And then I also like Fire Mastery if I'm using Fireball. I'm not always using Fireball, so this is something you don't always run, but that extra burn duration definitely does some nice damage, and obviously the 5% more damage to your Fireballs is going to be huge. There are a few other options that are definitely worthwhile, but let's maybe talk about some that aren't as often used. So Arcane Feedback and Melt, personally, I don't find as much use out of these ones. I did talk about Quick Chant. Obviously, you can use Quick Chant and you can use Sage. So now you can get up to 35.8% spell casting speed, and now you're casting spells very quickly. So this is something that's viable. You could do that. You could also think about running Reactive Shield. This is going to really help you against rogues. It's going to, reduce the damage on those ticks or the triple shot ranger. It can catch that second arrow and just keep you alive for that extra little bit. I also like running Ice Shield sometimes. So this is getting me up to pretty much 10% physical reduction as opposed to, nothing. So it's doubling your naked armor. And then if you get maybe even just like a Regal Gambison or some greens and stuff like that, you can get up to, 15 or a little bit higher even physical damage reduction. And if you're getting, a nice leather hat, you can get a little bit of headshot reduction, and all of a sudden those longbows aren't just going to one tap you. So that gives you the ability to just survive that green longbow from the ranger, or even the blue longbow if you're wearing a little bit of nicer gear. But once they start getting into really nice gear, a wizard will fold to the dreaded longbow or crossbow to the head. So that is something to note, but having Ice Shield gives you that little bit of physical damage reduction that sometimes gives you that extra little bit of survivability. So I do typically will run something like this though, and that's totally fine. And I'll swap out Sage for Quick Chant potentially, depending on the gear I'm running. But right now I'm doing something a little atypical with my build, so I'm using Sage, and I'll talk about that in a moment, because first we need to look at the spells. So spells are generally typically like this on the left here. This is the skill that I'm slotted, and this is the very classic all-round wizard build. It's good for PvE, it's good for PvP, and it has all the tools you need for support as well. So this is going to give you your fireballs for blasting enemies. A headshot fireball will do a ton of damage, and then you can follow it up with a quick zap, and that will kill a lot of players that are equally geared. And obviously the more gear you have, the more effective it all becomes. And then Magic Missiles is the ultimate PvE spell with your spell book or your crystal ball, even a gray one. This will generally, one volley of missiles will kill most typical enemies in the dungeon, which is going to do a lot of work for you, especially killing those archers and mages in one volley at a range is going to be really, really nice. And then you have the classic haste invisibility combo, which is going to give you the mobility you need to escape and reposition and flank to get off your fireball zap. And oftentimes in PvP, just having haste up and then just repositioning a few times with invisibility, just casting a few zaps, you can kind of just zap spam with your spellbook, and that'll take care of quite a few 1v1s. Now I also have my second spell memory set up, and you'll notice I'm not really running very much gear right now. And this is actually a build that I've been having a lot of fun with. So this is sort of the 10 spell build. Currently I can only get 9 spells, but 9 spells with almost naked wizard is pretty good. The only gear that I have is the rawhide gloves. And I just bought a gray set, and I bought a whole bunch more because they were cheap and I just had a few around, so I bought some more. Obviously you can do the same with padded leggings, and because this is just sort of like a solo kind of throwaway fun set, this is kind of what I'm bringing in on my solo runs. And this is actually going to do quite a bit for me. So it has 9 spells that are active, and I've had more than one time where I just find a plus spell memory or plus knowledge piece of gear, and I can, activate lightning strike in the middle of the dungeon, and that can be fun too, because we only need 3 more spell memory, which we could get with just a little bit of knowledge, maybe a lucky green, and we could get there. So let's talk about how you want to play differently with this. So if you're running meditate, which is fantastic, this is sort of like the default build. This is going to get you all your spells back. If you're running meditate, you're going to be using your magic missiles pretty liberally just to clear mobs. But if you are running the 10 spell, you are going to be doing a little bit of manual resting just by hitting G and sitting down to get all your spells back at once. So you want to use all your spells to clear mobs. So you might be using like a fireball to pull a mob and then zapping it once and then just finishing it off with your staff. And you might be using ignite a few times and finishing off mobs with your ignited staff or your ignited crystal ball dagger. You might pull an enemy with ice bolt and then ignite. And then you're kind of just cycling through all your spells for your PvE, especially like these top 5 damage spells. And then you can be pretty liberal with spells like Light Orb and Ignite and Zap, because these come back so fast, even just with using G. And then your other spells are going to come back a little bit slower. So Magic Missile and Ice Bolt come back a little bit slower, and then Fireball is going to be quite slow. And then all these spells down here, you're going to pretty well save these for PvP. So you should kind of always have them at the ready. You don't need to be worried about sitting down too much. And then obviously Clarity Pots are really valuable for this build, and playing with a bard makes it even more smooth. But I find this is really nice, especially if you're playing solo. You can oftentimes just find a quiet corner to, recharge your spells after clearing a room if you really want to rat it out and have some fun. And then the Light Orb pulls rogues out of stealth, which can be awesome to make sure that you're not going to get jumped. And I've had a lot of success just running with this. And this is just a kind of a fun utility build with tons of spells, tons of tools in the toolbox, but probably the general effective build is going to be this. It's sort of a typical wizard build. And there are some arguments to be made for even running Arcane Shield, especially if you have a bard that is going to be giving you that chloricle of clarity. I can speak, I promise. It's going to give you all your spells back without needing to rest. So you can have this little bit of defense, pop a blue potion, pop this, run in there invisible, and get a sick flank, and you will be surprisingly tanky. You also have the opportunity to do some intense focus as well. This is going to let you do a fireball into fireball. So double fireball really, really fast. And that can be a huge amount of burst damage. And this will effectively one-shot people out of nowhere. You do have to make sure you have good aim. And once again, you are giving up your ability to get back spells quickly on your own, so you have to rely on a bard or a bunch of clarity pots. And yeah, there is some opportunities there as well. But overall, this is something that I would run. And we can take a look a little bit at the gear and equipment that you're going to want to think about on your wizard. So obviously, in terms of gear, you're looking for will and you're looking for knowledge in terms of just getting all your spells, but as well as your casting speed up. So knowledge is really useful there. Also, don't sleep on strength. It does give you more hit points. So obviously, like for every class, plus all attributes is something you're generally after. I also like to keep an eye out for padded legs and rawhide gloves, just because they, even the grays here, are going to give me the will and knowledge that I need, that I'm looking for. Additional magic damage sets, you want to build these out as much as possible. It has a huge impact on your magic missiles and your ability to clear people quickly. Makes your zaps significantly more powerful. Just the more plus magic you can get, the better. You definitely want it on all your rings and amulets and everything. Running Dagger Ball is nice, and I like to just buy a few of these setups, and especially if I'm running the 10 spell, I like to do this because I'm going to be igniting, and it's just nice to have a combination I can do that with. If I'm going to be running the book, I usually go for Meditate, and I go for that more traditional, just like Spellslinger build that can quickly get all my spells back. And then I will often just bring a Crystal Sword just for PvE, so even a gray one. It has a nice long range poke, and it's really safe. It lets you kind of just do one poke, back off, do one poke, back off, and you can safely clear skeletons and things like that without too much worry, and then save your magic missiles for the more dangerous enemies like the Spearmen or the Axemen that sometimes are a little bit harder to dodge, or the archers or crossbowmen that can do a lot of damage to you. So that's my general overall guide for the wizard. Definitely a playmaker, a class that is capable of 1vx. Very, very fun to play. Very high skill cap and always more to learn, and definitely my favorite class to play solo in the dungeon. So if you like this, once again, please feel free to hit that sub button. And thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, you're the best. I will catch you in the next one.